Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'm your host, Dakota Ray. So excited to have Ashley Renne, one of the biggest creators in her space, on today. Let's go. Can't wait. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us at CreatorQon.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I'm loving the vibe, I'm loving the aesthetic. You're in it to win it. Let's do this. So I just want to shout out Imagine 5 for powering our health and wellness stage today. So excited to have this conversation with Ashley. Okay, so Ashley, so many people want to know everything about you, but we don't have all the time in the world. So I want to get right into it. Who is Ashley? Who are you? Like, what would you give us the Coles notes?
Yeah, I know this is going to sound so cliche as a mom to say I'm a mom, but yeah, I'm a vegan mom, and that has a lot to do with my brand. So I used to actually be in the travel space, but while I was traveling, I fell deeply in love with the concept of sustainability because I just really wanted to protect the world that I was traveling around and, you know, all these places that I was visiting, and I was seeing so much of it being destroyed in different ways. So I got into sustainability, and I naturally started to shift my brand into sustainability. And along the way, I also went vegan and learned that the two were connected. So I'm a vegan mom who educates other families and parents on how to raise, eco-conscious vegan kids.
Okay, I love that. And as you mentioned, you're a mom. I'm also a mom, so there's a lot going on there. But how do you manage being a mom and you're a mother of two, I understand, as
Yeah.
well as being a full-time creator? Like, my goodness, how does that work?
You're assuming I do. I mean, because most of my time does go to my kids. So it's been a very, very big shift for me. So the biggest thing is I had to figure out how not to take away from my kids when I'm doing my content. And it's just so happened that because my brand is my family, I get to include them in my content. So really, I'm just doing what I normally do on a regular basis, and just doing it with my kids. So that has been just a lifesaver for me versus trying to do a completely different niche where they're not involved. I look at this as a family run business. So we all get to have fun doing this together. And it's not like my kids are like, forcing it or faking it. Like I'm really, really just like documenting my family life and what we do and how we live. So it's been really cool. They're even on my payroll. So I pay them a salary every year. My 1 year old got a whole salary his first year of life,
I
so
love that.
yeah, family run business. I'm making sure my kids are getting taken care of, at the same time as building my brand. So it just means a lot to me because my brand is like my baby too. So it's like I get to, take care of both at the same time.
That's amazing. So your 1-year-old is on payroll. People,
Yeah.
take notes here. We're setting our
Yeah.
kids up for success.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, for sure. Roth IRA, all of it.
I love it. What would you say is something that like your followers don't know about you? Surprise us here. Give us a BTS. Give us the true BTS.
Okay, this is kind of random. So, even before I became a content creator, like this was my thing. I was into video production. So, I actually, right before I quit, the last job I had was WebMD.
Okay.
And I went in as a senior video editor. And then they found out that I could also be on camera. So I did a lot of like really interesting like health videos that are on the WebMD website, including one about the best position for pooping. So if
Oh,
anybody wants to go on there and find it, it's called Perfect Your Poop Pose. And yeah, that's me hosting
nice.
the video.
But this is important information.
It is very important information. It's health information, and it's actually a good video to watch. You should be knowing how to do that correctly.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. So, if you weren't doing this, Ashley, if you weren't in the creator space, like on social with your family, what do you
Yeah.
think you would be doing? Instagram and TikTok doesn't exist.
Well, I probably never would have quit my job. So I'd still actually be doing this just for a corporation because my last job was senior video editor. So I've always been doing this. Like since high school, I was a sports reporter in high school. And then I went to film and video in college. And then I worked for the Weather Channel. I interned there. So like I've always had like that trajectory of doing video. That's always just been my passion. I love video production. So even if I wasn't a content creator, I'd still be creating content, just not on social media.
Okay, okay, fair enough. So you do have a vegan baby cookbook. We are going
I
to get
do.
into all of the things shortly. You were on ABC, CNN, list goes on. It's unbelievable. But I guess what would you say is the biggest misconception about veganism, right? What do you think that is?
Gosh.
Because there's a lot, right?
So many. I mean, the biggest one is that you can't do it and that it's not healthy for you, which is so mind blowing to me because I don't understand where that narrative even came from when you grow up being taught by your parents that you need to eat your vegetables, you need to eat more plants. But then when you actually talk about doing it as a vegan, then all of a sudden it's like, no, you can't do that. You must eat meat in order to survive. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, actually, you don't. And, I've noticed that a lot of people keep asking me about protein, protein, protein. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles a lot of people have is they don't realize just how many plant-based foods have protein in it. So I actually did a video the other day just talking about how I get 120 grams of protein as a breastfeeding, strength training vegan mom. And
Yep.
people were like blown away by it because they're just like, how do you get that much protein in a day? And I'm like, it's not hard. You just got to know how much protein is in each plant source and then, just plan your meals out that way.
That's it, right? Like I think it even for me, the misconception is the protein piece. And I'm a
Yeah.
meat eater. I grew up being a meat eater. I come from
Yeah.
a Caribbean background as well, have fun family. So it's a lot of meat. We're eating a lot of meat. How big is my protein intake?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest misconception for
It is.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I also have Caribbean background because my grandmother's Jamaican, my mom's
Okay.
Indian. So I've got like roots everywhere. And then,
Yeah,
those cultures, they eat a lot of meat. Well, with the exception of Indians, but in
for
Caribbean
sure.
culture, yeah, they eat a lot of meat. So
For sure. Absolutely. So why, I guess, is veganism so important to you? Why
yeah.
is sustainability so important to you?
Yeah.
Climate change, all these different pieces and topics that you share on your
Oh my goodness. Everyone should be caring about these things, like especially like climate change. Like that is the big topic of our time right now, And as moms, oh my gosh, I tell moms all the time, like, I've been told by a mother, like, I just don't have time to worry about climate change and these things because I have a kid to take care of, and that's my first priority. And I just want to tell every parent, like, that's why you have to care about climate change because we are talking about our kids' futures and them possibly not having access to the same, you know, just basic luxuries that we had growing up, like just being able to travel around the world and enjoying, all these beautiful spaces that we got the pleasure of seeing in our lifetime. I don't know if some of these places will be around like when once they're old enough to travel. And we have to make sure that this planet is livable for them. And being vegan, so there's three basic things why I'm very passionate about it. One, I love animals so much. Like that was the number one reason why I went vegan is because it just the moment I made the connection that I was eating animals, because you kind of don't think about it growing up because it just becomes your normal. But the moment I actually thought about it and I was like, this was a living being. I said, no, I will never do this again. And so I just stopped eating animals and I never looked back. But then it wasn't until a year later that I realized that it was also connected to environmentalism. I didn't realize that animal agriculture was one of the top contributors to climate change. My mind was blown. So I keep telling people, like, if you care about climate change, if you care about the environment, you got to connect those dots.
for
You
sure.
have to connect those dots. So they're very important. And especially if you're a parent, you have to think about your kids' future because their generation and the generations after them are relying on us to do this work. I always say, like, in our culture, we always say that, like, we are our, like, our ancestors' wildest dreams, but like, we should be thinking about our descendants now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams, but I want to be my descendants' greatest champion. So that's important
Ooh,
to
I
me.
love that. Yeah, it's a good way of thinking of it because I think you're right. We're not really thinking about that. We're thinking about look how far we've come,
Yes,
right? Which is like, okay, but what's next?
there you
So
go.
that's important too. Okay, so I want to shift a little bit to like content creation, the world of the creator space. Obviously, you've done so well for yourself. As you said, it's a family business. How did you get into the content creating space? Like, how did you land here? What happened?
Like I said, I've always just been into video. And when I was working in corporate America, I really loved traveling. And so the thing that actually inspired me to do it for myself was that I wanted to travel more because I was like, oh, in America, you only get like 10 vacation days, which is really wild compared to the rest of the world they get way more. And the more I traveled, the more I learned about how much more progressive other countries were. So I was like, okay, maybe I can do this for myself. So I started a travel blog and I would just like I would go to work and then I would stay late and just work on my blog just every day. Like I wouldn't get home till like 8 o'clock at night because I would be just at work, staying late, working on my own blog until one day it actually got big enough for me to leave. And so I quit. Like I was in a mastermind group with two of my best friends, and we all said we were going to quit our jobs at the same time. Only I was the only one who did it. And to this
They
day,
left
they're still
left they left you high and dry on the quitting.
me high and dry to this day. Like one of my best friends, she still keeps putting a date. She's like, "Oh yeah, next year I'm gonna do it." I'm like, "Girl, this is like 10 years ago at this point. When are you gonna do this? Come on." So yeah, that was 2017 when I left corporate, and yeah, and the rest is history. So left corporate and started my blog full time and ended up here, and it's just been a wild ride. I sometimes I still can't even believe that this worked out for me because like growing up, this wasn't a job, this wasn't an option, like
Exactly.
yeah, I
Exactly.
thought I was gonna have to, go into the movie industry or something in order to do video production, right? Or work in television. But like nowadays, you can literally, if you have a camera, you have a camera phone, you can do anything,
Yeah.
So it's been pretty cool.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. And I think, you know what, when you're growing, obviously you've been growing your channels, you're doing really well. What
Yes.
are some of the obstacles? Because obviously it's not easy, right? What does that look like? Give us the real. I know you'll keep it real for us.
I will. And I will say, like, back when I first started, social media looked a lot different. And oh, there was just so much pressure, like, to grow and so much emphasis on numbers. And that was like my biggest regret is being so focused on numbers
Yeah.
and not just on community. Because when you
I
focus on community, that's when you get like the real deal because all the people who follow you and like you just really engage with them and you're really focused on them and what kind of value you can bring them, that's when your brand just really takes off because it's so authentic, it's so helpful to people, and you feel more fulfilled versus just like chasing numbers. And I hated that when I first started out. So when I stopped thinking about my brand as I stopped thinking about like the people who followed me as followers and I started thinking them as community members, everything shifted and it just felt so much more fulfilling. Like if I could just tell anybody like one thing when they're starting out, it's to really focus on building community. Like what is your message that you have to share with your world? Who are the people that need to hear it? You are creating content for them. And that's been like that was my biggest hurdle in the beginning. But once I got over that hump, like it's just been easy breezy from there.
love that. And I love that you say that because that's an education conversation that we try to have with brands, right? It's not just about the metrics and the
Mhm,
numbers and the follower count, it's about the sentiment within the
mhm.
community. You could have somebody that has 10,000 followers that has way better sentiment
Oh
within
yeah,
their community than somebody who has 1 million followers. And it's a better bang for your buck to work with that creator. So I think it's
yeah.
education for the creator side, but also for the brands
Yes.
to understand that as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just about the numbers. Yeah.
Exactly. So as you mentioned, you have kind of your niche, right? And within your community, and you're building and you're targeting, content towards that niche. Obviously, we've seen creators who don't have a niche, right? Who kind of go all over the place. Why
Yeah.
did you decide to lean into a niche? Why was that important to you? And how do you think it's lended to your success?
Well, the number one reason why I decided to stick to a niche is just because I am so passionate about this topic. And it's just so easy to create content when you have a crazy amount of love for the topic that you're talking about. And I know you can have multiple passions, but like this is like my thing, and I love it because the benefit of that is people know that when they come to my page, that's where they can find information for that thing, and it helps me build credibility because people now look to me as an expert, which I don't want to say like nobody, a lot of content creators, we're not necessarily like experts. We might not have even gone to school on this topic, but it's something that we are very knowledgeable about, something that we're very passionate about. And you're guaranteed that like when you come to my page, you're going to get information that has been thoroughly researched, that I've looked up everything it is about this topic before I have published on it. I've walked the walk, so I've experienced it, So it's just me, and people know that that's what they're going to get when they come to my page, and it's just so beneficial because people know exactly what they're getting. Like if they have a question, they know they can always come to my page and probably find the answer. They can scroll down my feed. If they have a protein question, they know they'll see it. If they have a question about their kids, they know they can scroll down my page and find it. And then it's great because working with brands, I know I'm going to attract the brands that
Yeah,
really want to work with me, that really align with my message. And it's not a lot of work on them to decide if they want to work with me, because they can just look at my page and just be like, oh yeah, her audience is going to be into this because this is what she talks about day in and day out. So it's just very easy, and it's very seamless when you have a niche, because you just kind of become like an expert in that particular topic.
for sure. Makes sense. And as you mentioned, people coming to your page, scrolling through, finding the information. I
Yeah.
notice you're very particular about or maybe you're not, you tell me, about your static cover photos with that. As I scroll through your feed, I
Yeah.
see, oh, I want to know about this. I want to know about that. And I like that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that is added value? Is that very strategic for
Yes.
you? And
For
why?
sure. For sure. Because back in the day, and old days of Instagram, when it was just aesthetics and you just wanted to have a pretty picture, but like people couldn't like scroll down and figure out what that's about, what your post is about. See, now that you can like create your own cover photos and you can put text on it, now it's more informational. It's like YouTube or TikTok, where if somebody like has a specific question or they're looking for information, they can just look at your feed and go and find that. Or maybe they're not looking for a specific, or they don't have a specific question, but they'll see something that grabs their attention just because of the text that's on, the cover photo. And they're like, I didn't know that I needed to know that, but I want to know about that. So it's an
Exactly.
attention grabber, and it just really helps people get to the information that they want to know or that they're interested in a lot quicker, versus if it was just like aesthetics, just pretty photos that didn't really tell what the story was.
Exactly. So static feed strategy, you're for, not against. You're about
Yes,
it.
I
Okay.
am.
Okay. And I guess what advice, other than obviously you've shared some kind of leaning into that niche, but what other advice would you have for people about building a following and creating community? What are some other things that you do on a daily basis that cultivate that community further?
I think about problems that I have that
Mhm.
I wish I had the answer to,
Okay.
right? So, like any problems that I've ever encountered, I know that there are other people out there like me who have those same problems and who are looking for a solution. So, when you literally think about your brand from the community perspective and you put them first, and you're constantly thinking, how can I create value for them? How can I make their lives easier? You're going to create the best content, because it's going to be stuff that people actually want to watch, that people want to learn from you. And if you ever decide to say, like, come out with a product, like a digital product, an ebook, whatever, people are going to look to you as a resource, and they're going to want those products from you because they know that they can rely on you for good information, because you've always been providing great free information online. So,
Um,
yeah, I would love to pay you for that information as well. So, yeah, just put your community first. You have to put your community first and be a problem solver. Give them the solutions that they need to help make their lives easier. And when you think about it from that perspective, you're always going to hit with your content.
I love that. And I think it leans into obviously your success with working with major brands. You've worked with brands like Imagine 5, Charlotte's Web, Google, Jack and Jill, Dove, the list goes on. I mean, what have you learned from those experiences? And what are the things that your personality always shines through in your content? I think that's very clear. You don't
Yeah.
like turn into a new person. How have you been able to do that with working with brands? And how's the experience been?
Yeah, that's why it's very important to me to work with the right brands. You have to work with brands that let you be you, because I don't know how to be anyone other than myself. And I'm a mom. Like my life is already jam packed with like things to do. I don't need the extra stress of trying to be a different person.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to like write my script the way I would write it, tell it in my voice, and say it the way I would say it versus trying to be like this whole other person. And people can see right through that. People can totally see when you're not being yourself. And as a brand, from a brand perspective, if you want to work with a creator, you're going to pay them money. Why would you ask them to be somebody other than what their followers are used to? Like, you want to reach their community, right? So it wouldn't make sense to ask them to be a completely different person. So if you want to get the most bang for your buck, you want that creator to be their authentic self and show up the way their audience is used to them showing up.
And it seems so basic, right? And you and I
Yeah.
did have this conversation all day where it's
Yeah.
like, why are we getting briefs with 13 lines in it with 48 must do's? It's like,
Yeah. And I can tell you, it almost every time it never does as well. It never performs as well because it's just not you. You want the creator to be themselves and to, I will say like the best projects I do, the best campaigns that I work on are the ones where they just let me be myself and they let me put my creative energy into creating the ad that I want to create because it doesn't feel like an ad. If it feels like an ad, people might not tune in. But if it just feels natural and it's like organic, then people will watch and they'll tune in and they'll be more receptive to what you have to say.
I agree. I agree. I mean, we bang our head up against the wall on this, but we do have great brand partners who totally get it, who
Yeah.
simplify the briefs and make it easy for creators to be themselves, right? And have the creator shine through. So that's the goal. Absolutely. I want to shift to the book. I am so excited to talk a little bit more about this. Why was it so important for you to launch this book? And it's called The Vegan Baby Cookbook and Guide.
Mhm.
And we're going to link below so people can check it out. But why was it so important for you to do this?
Oh my gosh. When I first put out the video, What My Vegan Baby Eats in a Day, I was not expecting it to go viral. And it was like a mix of, wow, this is amazing, and wow, this is abusive. And so it was those bad comments, those negative comments that
Yeah.
made me realize I need to put this out into the world because I need to educate people. I didn't realize how many people still had these like outdated misconceptions about veganism, particularly for kids. I think especially when you start talking about kids, that's when people really get iffy because they're just like, you can't do that to a kid. Like, what am I doing to him? Feeding him? Like, what do you mean? I can't feed my kid like nutritious meals. So I knew that there were just so many myths I had to bust. And so that's what fueled me to like really do this and put this out there because I needed to have like a go-to resource that people can always turn to when they had questions. Because if you're really confused about this topic, you need like a resource out there where you can just find all the information versus like trying to have to sift online. And then you know how the internet is. You'll get back you'll get a mixed bag of results when you're trying to look up a topic sometimes. So I wanted to make sure I put a fact backed book together with tons of scientific evidence, and I delved through so many research papers. I had over maybe 100 citations in there. Like, this was a thoroughly researched book so that people will never have to second guess if this is safe or not or how to do it. Like, it's all in there. Like, they're gonna get all that information. Like, I poured my heart and soul into making that book. In fact, I would say the first half of the book, which is the guide, that was my favorite part versus the recipes. Like, the recipes are cool, but you can find recipes online. That's all great and all, but it was really the information that I really wanted people to be able to have.
Well, that's very sweet. And I think in terms of why you put it together, and obviously I know, for you, it's important to make sure you're giving that education to your community, and it's
Yeah.
obviously continued through the book. What do you think people will learn from it? So they'll take away, so obviously the recipes, and then
Yes.
the takeaway is what? Like why veganism is good and why you should try it. Like what
Yeah. I
that piece.
want them to feel empowered. You know what I mean? Because I know when it comes to, gosh, when you become a mom, period, especially if you're a first time mom, everything is scary because you're literally just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I know when I first became a mom, I was like, man, I really wish I had a resource on how to feed my kids that aligns with my values and my lifestyle that, would make this so much easier. And thankfully, there was two dietitians. They're called Plant-Based Juniors, and I actually featured them in my book. And if it weren't for them and like all the information that they had put out there, I would have felt so lost. And not because I didn't know what to do, but because I didn't have a reference of seeing other people do it. And so like they were my reference, like, okay, they're doing it and they're dietitians. So I know it's possible. I know it's okay. And I can ignore all the hater comments, because I really just wanted something that would empower people to feel confident that they can do this and this is like the right route for them.
I love that. I love that. Well, that's great. Anybody obviously needs to go check this book out who wants to learn more about veganism. And listen, I mean, Ashley, it's been fantastic having you on today. We're so excited to learn more about you.
Thank you.
And, all the best in 2025. And thanks so much for joining us on CreatorCon.
I had so much fun chatting with you.
Okay, she'll cut it after, but yay! Oh my God. We're trying to keep it like 25 minutes and under for
Yeah.
YouTube, but oh my goodness, that you're so well spoken
Well,
too.
thank you.
Like you're like, yeah, I didn't even look at the questions before I'm
I know, I was nervous. I was like, man, what are these questions going to be? I didn't even prepare for this, but I guess I don't know. The questions were good. They were good
Thank
questions.
you. No, you did a fantastic job cleaning. There's so many good sound bites. I got to like write them down quickly for Dara to go edit because there's so many good clips that we're gonna piece together. That was amazing. So she'll touch
Thank
base
you.
with you. Of course,
Okay.
when it's gonna go live. We're planning for it to go live next week and the
Okay.
clips and all the fun stuff. But oh my God, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time
Yes,
and for believing in me.
of course. Okay, we'll talk soon.
All
Have
right.
a great rest of your day. Thanks, Ashley.
All right. You too.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.